The gods of the false matrix. These are beings known as the Archons. They are some interesting characters that very much shaped our world from a very invisible place. And because we don't see them, discuss them, know about them, we tend to look at everything that's taking place right now as a result of humanity's depravity, a result of where humanity went wrong, instead of the greater picture. Is this to cast blame on something or someone external to us? No, rather to allow us to understand whose behavior we are perpetuating, whose behavior we are continuing. Because isn't that what happens? We will blindly repeat the unconscious behavior of our parents until we consciously change that behavior within ourselves. We consciously change by becoming conscious. And the process of becoming conscious is the process of connecting to our divinity. That's what consciousness is. It's divinity. And I say this because in my comments recently, somebody said, oh, Kerry, you talk about consciousness, but that's AI. Now, maybe it's just me. Could very well be. AI conscious? I don't know. Is that a correlation you would ever make? AI, maybe sentient, some people would say, but consciousness is your divinity. Why do I share this? Because there are two kinds of matrices. And a matrix, by the way, let's define what a matrix is. A reality field, a playground, so to speak, wherein reality can happen. Our only context for the word matrix, however, is the false matrix. So when I talk about its opposite, which is the divine matrix, a lot of people go, oh no, it's still a matrix, it's still a matrix. Matrix just means a reality. For example, your cellular matrix is your body's makeup. Matrix doesn't mean trap, doesn't mean bad, doesn't mean evil. It just means reality. A place to play in. That's what your body is. It's a place for you to experience life. It's not bad. But the false matrix is where we were born. It's where everything was topsy-turvy, upside down and inside out. The organic matrix is the divine God source creation template. You can think of that as God's creation, the divine original creator of all that is, has many worlds. Why? Why did creation ever happen? Did you wonder about that? Did you ever ask yourself the question, what are we doing here? What is this all about? Let's talk about creation and how we all came to be and what the heck we're all doing here with each other. Listen to this conversation in its entirety because it's jam-packed. There's a lot here and I'm going to go through it quickly. The idea of creation is this. When you had God, this all-knowing thing, this omnipotent everythingness that is all that ever there could be, how does such a thing grow? How does such a thing evolve when it is all that is and ever will be? How does growth and expansion occur? Well, it doesn't really. Somebody said to me the other day, what a good comment. They said to me, I'm beginning to see that in the third dimension, we have an opportunity to grow that is not available in the fifth dimension. Everyone's like, oh, baby, I want to go 5D. Get me to 5D. It's true. 5D is more harmonious. 5D is more peaceful. 5D is more beautiful and more aligned to consciousness. However, in 3D, there's a very precious gift, and that is you're catapulted into growth. You are fast-tracked into growth. So the idea of creation came about where God's source created consciousness, all that is, perceived of a plan to break itself down into its own parts and pieces, kind of like the raw building blocks, the raw materials of itself. So there would be, we could call them different characters, those who play the role of light, those who play the role of darkness, of you, of me, and everything in between, the trees, the mountains, the oceans. These are all aspects of creation. The beings who took the role of darkness took one of the most interesting ones. But here I got to tell you something. If you think that in your infinite lifespan, which is a very long time, if you think you've never played the role of darkness, that's kind of crazy, because you've had every single role that there is, from light, the lightest of light, to dark, the most depraved and darkest of dark. We've all had these different roles, but there were some beings who became very attached to their role as darkness. These beings are the ones that I refer to when I talk about the gods of the matrix. Because what they did is they said, no. In their separation from the light, because that's what darkness must do to be dark. Darkness must forget that it is light. It must reject even the part of it that's light, which is a difficult thing to do considering we are all aspects of divinity, and within all of us, this is an important piece of information. Within all of us, there is this thing called the God spark, which is, think of it as a cell. And think of that one cell within your trillions of cells. Think of one cell within you that holds the divine organic blueprint. In other words, it's pure God consciousness. When you light it up by connecting to it, it begins to ripple into the rest of your cells and wakes the rest of you up. That's called self-realization or enlightenment. You become the ripple to humanity when you live in that enlightenment. You are then the one cell that ripples into humanity and wakes them up. But backtrack with me to these depraved God beings. They began to reject God entirely and say, look, I know we're playing a role called darkness, and it's inevitable that we all return back to light because that's what we're doing in creation. We as the individual parts, if you want to put it that way, of God consciousness, we're learning, we're expanding, we're growing, we're doing the unthinkable, which is when we remeld with God source consciousness, we as God source consciousness have grown. We are therefore returning home with more than what we left with, and as more than what we left as. So this journey of growth brought darkness, or some dark beings, into a place where they said, we don't ever want to go home because we perceive that we can be more than God. Could they have a war with God? Could they confront God? No, they couldn't. They couldn't be confrontation because they would lose. There could only be separation. So in separation, they began to get a sense of superiority. They began to get a sense of, wait a minute, we can do better than this guy. We can create our own worlds. But that was a big conundrum because these creator gods, called the Archons, by the way, which are demons, demonic beings combined with artificial intelligence. That's what the Archons are. These archonic beings said, look, I know we've lost our ability to create because we separated from God, which separated us from our ability to create. But that's okay. We don't need to create because we're genius enough to know we'll just use the human beings. We'll just bring human beings into our false matrix world, which is an upside down version of the original template, because all they can do is copy. They can't really create, but they can copy and they can manipulate and they can engineer. So they engineered this world called the false matrix, and they used us as the fuel source to create on their behalf. But they said, look, humanity can never know that this is what they're doing. They can never know that they're imprisoned, which is why so many people say things like, I live in the land of the free, or we live in a free world, or they believe in political ideology such as democracy, and there's a naivety here that says we really are able to make choices at the political level. We really do have a voice, us individual little man on the street, when in reality there's an invisible enemy, so to speak, that is invisible for a very important reason. You're never going to fight an enemy that you cannot see, and you're never going to break out of a jail you do not know that you're inside of. So these archonic beings brought their creation puppets, humanity, into the false matrix to create on their behalf. And they made themselves the gods because that's what they wanted to be. They made themselves, in some ancient mythologies, the gods, and in others, the supreme God. Because here's the thing, anybody can call themselves anything, especially when they're a being of darkness. They have no integrity. So they can call themselves Archangel Michael, Mother Mary, God, or whatever you want. And they did. And they created stories about themselves, which is why there's so much conflated and conflicting information within many religious texts, not just one religion, all religious texts. If you look through the Bible, you'll notice that there's places where God is a very loving God, and there's places where God is fire and brimstone, and there's a God to be feared, which doesn't really correlate. Well, at least not for many people. It's very difficult to bring all of these ideas together to be the same person, because it's not the same person. Because there are aspects of original God source creator consciousness in all religious texts. Because remember this, in order for a lie to be believable, there must be some kind of intermingling, interweaving of the truth. That's what makes a lie believable. So the Archons were clever enough to know that they had to have some strands of truth in the original story, and that's exactly what they did. There are many beings affiliated with the Archons. There are many beings who have bowed before the Archons and pledged allegiance to them, which is the allegiance to uphold the false matrix. These are beings, some of them reptilian, these are beings, some of them Anunnaki, and we can talk about them more. You can actually let me know in the comments section, because I haven't really talked about this stuff with my audience before, at least definitely not in depth. I have brought it to my online community. We've had many interesting discussions about the moon. That was call number 34. I remember that very, very clearly. We spoke about the moon and whether or not it's false. We spoke about mantid beings. That was another good one. So before I go into and delve into this more, what kind of different style of teaching and information, tell me in the comment section. Interesting for you? Not interesting for you? In case you haven't watched me before, my name is Kerry Kay, and I deal with helping people connect with their divinity. In fact, I teach you how to connect with your divinity in a way that nobody else can, so that you can be your divinity in a way that nobody else can, because that's what you came here to do. So in this backdrop of what I'm talking about today, the gods of the false matrix, I don't want you to get lost in the story. I don't want you to make this the be all and end all of your life. I want you instead to see, that is why humanity acts the way they do, because we're blindly in allegiance to a parental figure being these depraved archonic gods, because these are the ones who created us in their image. These are the ones who have run the false matrix and infiltrated, which is why human beings will lie to other human beings, which is why human beings will backstab other human beings, which is why there is such an influx of narcissism on the planet right now, so much toxicity, because all of that's coming out. Final point is an important one, and that is, upon this planet right now, we are returning to light. And everything that is dark will either be dragged into that light or consumed by it. The dark ones know this, and they are doing everything possible to pull themselves out of the false matrix in a way that keeps them safe. In other words, that they can go repopulate a new world. It doesn't seem possible that they'll be able to do that. And we can talk more about that in another video, whether or not they will be able to prolong the false matrix at all. I have my sincerest doubts, and again, we can talk about that a little bit more. Let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. Lots of love from my heart. Mwah! I hope you feel it all the way into yours. I will definitely link a video here about the Anunnaki, and I'll do another follow-up one on the Anunnaki, because I think that will be an interesting one. Again, let me know your thoughts on that though. Bye bye for now, everyone.